afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. The session today is going to be short, but I feel it's really important. That's why I rushed to get this together for us. So let's jump in. Today we're talking about the Equifax breach. What happened, what are the risks, and how do we protect ourselves? So what happened? 143 million people's personal information was compromised. That's your name, address, date of birth, and social security number. Just think, what else do people ask when they try and validate who you are? This is really, really dangerous. Very important. You don't have to be an Equifax customer to have been a victim. Just look at that number, 143 million out of 325 million in the US. That's a staggering number. There were another 209,000 people that had credit card information stolen. Those were Equifax customers. And the statement said that there was Canadian and United Kingdom citizens that were also compromised, but I didn't see any statistics on that. So what does this mean? This is all about identity. So critically important. Obvious financial loss, bad credit, compromised bank accounts, huge stress, just to be avoided at all costs, obviously. So what's the first thing we want you to do? If you haven't done this already, go to www.equifaxsecurity2017.com. From there, you click on the potential impact link, and they'll ask you for your last name and last 6 digits of your social security. You will then immediately be informed of whether they believe you were compromised or not. You need to do this for every member of your family, no matter how young or old. Personally, I did it, and I was surprised to find that myself and my son were not compromised, but my wife and my daughter were. So check everybody. You should check your credit ratings with one of the major credit bureaus. You need to get a baseline of where we are today so you can watch it. As you may know, every citizen is entitled to one free annual credit report. You can go to one of the 3 major service bureaus every 4 months, and you get a rotating report. So just a thought. I'd recommend signing up for a credit monitoring service immediately. Equifax is offering this service for free for a year if you signed up by November 21st. Experian and TransUnion offer the service, but they charge a monthly fee. I signed up with Equifax, take advantage of the free service. I guess it's a question if you're comfortable signing up for the people that, cause the risk in the first place. But I'll just share with you what's included in the Equifax monitoring service. I think it's funny that they call it Trusted IT Premier. That hasn't been too effective. Anyway, they'll give you your credit reports. They'll monitor the 3 major credit rating services and provide automated alerts of any key changes to your account. You'll do credit report lock. I'm going to talk about that a little further, but just quickly, an exception to the lock is government agencies will still have access to the credit reports. Companies reviewing your account for employment will have it, and collection agencies, if they're trying to recover money from you, will as well. There's also providing a social security monitoring service that's scanning the dark web where personal information is suspected of being bought or sold. You've heard me speak about the dark web many times. And they also provide $1 million of identity theft insurance to help out-of-pocket expenses if you do become a victim. You do need to check the actual policies for each jurisdiction to evaluate the terms, conditions, and exclusions. I didn't look at this, and I didn't evaluate it. It's not why I signed up. So let's go through the chronology of the attack. On March 8th, Cisco engineers discovered a vulnerability in a web application called Apache Struts. That same day, the software vendor released a patch for the vulnerability. Equifax claimed to have addressed this vulnerability in the spring. In mid-May, the belief was that this was when the hackers gained access. But it wasn't until July 29th that Equifax personnel discovered this activity, suspicious activity. On August 2nd, Equifax called in Mandiant, a cybersecurity firm, to perform the forensic analysis. FYI, on that same day, 3 executives in the company sold $1.8 million worth of their stock. Again, well before it became public. On September 7th, they finally released information about it. At the time, some security experts believe it was a random discovery of a vulnerability, scanning the web, looking for things like that. But here's what really happened. So I told you March 8th. By March 10th, Mandiant's security team discovered that this is when the actual compromise took place. So they were in there 2 days after the vulnerability was discovered. But they didn't start hacking anything until May 13th. That's over 2 months. What they were doing was reconnaissance, probing systems, equated to turning doorknobs to see which doors would open. They were building out a beachhead to make it difficult to get them kicked out. They designed ways to hide their activities, making it harder to discover. And they created about 30 web shells, hidden pages, that would allow them to access Equifax after the Struts vulnerability was patched. That's a lot of time preparing for this attack. Again, the Equifax personnel discovered it on July 29th. On average, it takes between 100 to 200 days for a company to discover they've been hacked. In this case, it was 141 days. There's been significant criticism over the overall design, among other things, of course, but there was just too much access. Again, we've talked about it several times about the importance of protecting your confidential data and limiting access as much as possible, Dave. Obviously, we're not diligent in this case. Okay, protecting yourself, simple best practices. Set up fraud alerts with your bank, credit card companies, and credit companies. Regularly check your credit report. Again, I can't emphasize, we have to be much more diligent now. Personal information is out there. And, well, we just have to be careful. Obviously, monitor these accounts closely, even the small ones, and freeze your credit report. You need to do this with all 3 services. What that means is when you freeze your credit report, you won't be able to open up new credit. That's good because we don't want the exploiters able to do that. We don't want it. It will require you to, quote, thaw your credit to use it again. It's not complicated to do, but you need to allow about 3 days to actually be sure that your credit information is retrievable again. Over 90% of the U.S. lending decisions for finance are used from these credit services, the FICO scores. That's what gets your credit rating. Little side note, the credit rating at each of these services will not be exactly the same number. It depends whose data is being reported to whom, so the numbers vary a little bit. And again, freezing your account does not impact your credit or ability to use your existing credit cards. It's just for new applications. Parents should check to see if their children have a credit report. If a report does exist, strongly consider freezing it. If they don't have one, consider creating one and then immediately freezing it. You don't want somebody to create an identity of your child and start creating credit and spending money. There were 15,000 plus identity theft complaints filed with the Federal Trade Commission in 2016 concerning children and teenagers, which represents about 4% of all identity thefts for the year. Now we know there are a ton more data out there, so we need to be careful. Okay, a serious problem. You ready? Freezing your credit will prevent access to your credit records, but it won't prevent criminals from using your Social Security number to file fraudulent tax returns. The Federal Trade Commission is warning taxpayers to file their tax returns as soon as possible before a scammer can. Respond right away to any letters from the Internal Revenue Service. Be aware of how potentially valuable your W-2 info may be to scammers. Beware of phishing attacks. The IRS does not initiate contact by phone, email, text, or social media asking for personal or financial information. Be alert. Don't click on links or download attachments, and report suspicious online or email scams to phishing at IRS.gov, where you can call the number listed, 800-366-4484. In summary, it's not a very deep conversation today, but it's just important that we understand that this compromise could affect anybody. You didn't have to be an Equifax customer, and now your personal information may be out there. We need to check, we need to monitor, we need to do everything we can to be diligent because it's scary. Thank you, everybody. We will be posting this if you want to see it, get the notes, and just be sure you're doing everything you can to protect yourself. Have a great day. Thank you.